twins. Especially if I put my blue glasses on. Are these my blue glasses? No. I'm sorry you're shaking. You're on the cat tree with Pete and he's moving around. Okay. Hi, I'm Katrina and welcome to Moonbelly Makes, where I share all of my homemade projects both in the kitchen and in my dining room, which is my craft studio. Today I'm sharing with you part 1 of 3, showing you how I cover different things in my house in fabric for different reasons. For part 1, I am covering my journal in fabric, and I do this for a couple of reasons. The first is aesthetic, like it just is cuter. To me, I like a little bit of spice. The other reason is sensory. I just like the way that fabric feels, like a nice cotton fabric, and it just makes me more likely to pick up my journal. I'm not someone who's like super gung-ho about journaling, but it is really good to do. So any incentive I can have to pick it up, both the fact that it looks cuter and that it feels a little bit nicer, those things are good for me. I need them. I started doing this in college, so I've done a handful of these, but I haven't done it in a while, so there's a little bit of relearning how this works, but here's how it goes. This project doesn't need a lot of supplies. Obviously, you need a journal. I like this journal a lot because it has this elastic loop covering and it's dotted on the inside instead of lined or blank. It's like just enough structure, but not too much. You also need glue. I used this rubber cement at first. It was not the right kind of glue, and I actually switched to using this Sobo craft glue, which worked way better. I just didn't think I was going to use it in the beginning. You also need scissors, so I got my fabulous Ginger fabric scissors. And of course, you need options for your fabric. I chose these fabrics in particular as possible contenders because I thought that they would go well with the elastic loop and also the ribbon bookmarks that would still show even though I'm covering up the rest of the cover. To pick which fabric I'm going to use, I'm just going to kind of lay the fabric over the journal and I'm going to go with my gut. I think I'm leaning towards this one. That seems really pretty, huh? But let's see what the other ones look like. I mean, it looks great, but not what I want. This was the one I was originally thinking of. This is like this old dress, but I don't love the texture of it, and I want to pick up my journal, you know? That's like the main reason I'm doing this, is like a texture thing. I'm not feeling it though. I can't explain it. Sorry, thank you. Oh, I thought this was the same fabric, but it's different. Oh, I don't like the texture though, sorry. I'm gonna use this one. It's got a little bit of creasing in it, so I'm just gonna iron it real quick and then get to gluing. I lay the journal down onto my fabric, leaving just a little bit of fabric around the outside. I should have left a little bit more, you'll see later, but this ended up working out fine. And then I just freehand cut around the book one perfect rectangle of fabric. Okay, let's look at the inside front cover. So there we go. In the past, when I've done this before, I have glued the fabric down inside the cover and then glued the next page down to like clean up the edges. But this notebook is like honestly kind of cheaply made, which is actually maybe working to my advantage here because I think I can peel off this inner page. See how it's lifting up already? I think I can peel it off and then glue it back down once I do the fabric. And I'll try to do the same thing on the back. The back has a little pocket in it. It has stencils in it. I forgot about these. They're kind of silly, but they're kind of cute. Well, I ripped it. So I will not be doing that, but that's okay. I will glue it back down first, and then I will just flip this page over and glue it down. Which is how I've always done it before anyways. I did get the back cover to lift off a little bit just on the inner edge. It's glued better on the sides than on the outer edge, which feels like a poor design choice, but who am I to judge? But I think it will actually make the doing of this part a little bit easier, especially since we're continuing with this elastic loop. I started with the front of the book and just laid down a bunch of glue and smoothed the fabric down with my hands. Then I used my scissors to cut right next to the spine so that there's a cut from the edge of the fabric to the corner of the spine on both sides. So it's like a little strip of fabric that is the same width as the spine of the journal. I folded the fabric down and glued it in place, leaving it just a little bit taller than the book. Then I added glue to the spine and the back of the book and wrapped it all up. You can see here how there's just like a little flap of fabric, and I will be gluing that down right at the very end. Now, to make the elastic still work, I had to cut a slit in the fabric. So I just measured and marked with a chalk marker where I was going to cut that line. And I cut it like a very long eye, so it had teeny little slits in this orientation going vertically, and then the long slit going horizontally. Then I could pull the elastic through as I glued it all down. I added an extra little layer of glue along the top just to really seal it in place. For the inside, I used what I have learned watching tons and tons of upholstery videos on Instagram and started with the corners. So I folded the corners in and then folded the top down and then held it in place for a few moments while it dried. This is when it started to get really annoying, so I switched to this Sobo glue, which worked so much better. It dries a lot quicker, so you don't have to hold it as long. It's made for fabric, whereas the rubber cement is more made for paper. So that was a miss at the beginning from me. So here I did corner, top, corner, bottom, and then the long side. Then I used the Sobo around the edges and then rubber cement in the center, glued that first kind of like end paper down so that it would cover all of the raw edges of fabric. Pretty nice. The back is a little bit more complicated because it has the loop for the pen and also this pocket for storing things in, which I do use sometimes. I started by cutting little slits in the side, right at the place of the pen loop elastic, trimmed it, folded it over, and glued it right up to the edge of the elastic. Then this is where I wish I had had more fabric on the bottom and the top here, because I really wasn't thinking that I was going to need to fold it over on itself so that there weren't any raw edges hanging out. So I folded over the tiniest little hem, basically, glued it down, folded the corner down up by the spine, and then tucked the other corner underneath the backing paper, because this came off really easily, if you remember. Then I was able to do the long side above the elastic before going to the other corner and doing that long side as well. Then I added a little bit more glue so I could glue the paper down, just wiping away the excess with my finger. I swear, if you're the kind of person that likes peeling glue off your hands, this is a great project for you. This bottom side, the fabric was even smaller, so I just did the tiniest little hem to make sure I had enough to really cover that blue part. Okay, the last thing is on the spine. I'm just gonna glue that down. I'm gonna try to do just a very little bit of glue because I don't want to get, oh, there's too much. I don't want to get any glue on the pages, you know, for obvious reasons. I'm just gonna tuck it underneath. Wipe away the excess glue with my fingers. Just kind of pinch it and hold it until it dries. I think this whole corner situation needs a little bit of fray check, so I'm gonna do that on both sides too. I'm just going down this seam in the back one more time. I'm just adding a little more. And then where the elastic comes out to those little holes, they get a lot of wear. You're taking the elastic on and off and on and off, and you wanna make sure that this is really not gonna fray. That ruins the look of the whole thing. I didn't even notice I match it, but Josh pointed it out. Guess this is the mood I'm in pretty much all the time. Twins. Let's have a little bit of commotion for the front of the book and a little bit of commotion for the back of the book. I don't know if I got that quote right, but I do love that quote. Turned out pretty nice, pretty clean. Okay, I have one last thing. I'm gonna make a little fold out for my morning journaling prompts. I just like to have it right there for me so that I don't have to remember all of the things. Sometimes throughout the year I change these. Sometimes throughout the year I stop doing them. It does really help me, as annoying as that is to admit for me. It does really help to do a little bit of journaling in the morning, and doing just a free write often can pull me down. So I like having these prompts with like really simple suggestions of things to write, and it's kind of like filling out a form, which I think I've talked about before. I really love filling out forms, so I kind of make a little form for myself in the morning, so I'm gonna make that now. This is my last journal and I didn't cover it, and I don't love that I didn't do that, so I'm glad I'm back to my bullshit, as it were. Kind of do like a bullet journal style, kind of, and I usually would go through one a year. This was supposed to be 2020's book, and I've used it since then occasionally. My like month pages. February, obviously not like the most artistic bullet journal you've ever seen. April, it really kind of fell apart. April 2020, if we remember, that was what I wrote. So anyways, just just wanted to share that with you. On this first page, I have this little fold out that has my morning prompts. This is like a really cute little like Rifle Paper Company to-do list that I love. It says cock-a-doodle-doo. What does it say? No, to-doodle-doo. I'm going to continue with the Rifle Paper theme, and I'm going to use this washi tape that matches very well to my new book. And I'm just going to write it on this lined paper, which is also from Rifle Paper Company. I do love their stuff. It's so pretty. It's absolutely gorgeous. But this is like my work notebook. You've probably seen me use this. Not my work notebook really, but like my project notebook. Figuring things out and mathing things, patterns, like Jumanji board game made out of cookies, you know, things like that. And here it is. I have been using this now for a couple of months. I filmed that back in like the beginning of January, I think, and now it's the end of February. And other than being absolutely covered in cat hair, it's doing absolutely well. Nothing has come loose at all, and I don't think it's going to. It feels really secure, and like that Sobo glue was really the answer. I should have started with that. I'm also really loving the little fold out. It's just so helpful, and it matches so well, which like you don't need, but it's nice. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed, and I hope that it maybe inspires you to take an old shirt or an old napkin from the thrift store, or just a little piece of fabric you have laying around, and personalize your journal. It is worth it. It's just a nice little touch and can make those little acts of self-care a little bit sweeter, I think. Please come back next week as I do the next thing that I'm covering in fabric, which is this old sewing box that I got from my Buy Nothing group. And if you're watching this in the future, I will have put the link to that video in the description box below. So if you liked this video, here's a list of things. You can like the video, you can subscribe, you can comment and tell me that you liked it. That's nice. You can find me on Instagram or TikTok, and you can sign up for my newsletter. It's a lot of things, but I'd love to stay connected, and you can choose any of those ways that speak to you. Thank you again so much for watching, and I'll see you next week for part 2. Bye.